Hello and welcome to the Sports Podcast, Season 2, presented by the Collings Network. I'm your host, Chris Collings, of course, alongside
Nolan Thode. So we swear we're not only talking about football this year. That's the only sport that's on right now. I guess
other
MLB
than baseball, with the playoff race and whatnot.
Playoff race is heating up.
With being in Toronto, or not in Toronto, but being in Canada and being Jays fans, it's hard to follow along and really be a fan when it's so painful to be a fan of that team.
Yeah,
so we talk about football.
Things are turning up though.
Sometimes, and then the other times they're turning down. So I don't get it. It's hard to be a fan of that team, and I've taken a little backseat this season.
It'll be a good stretch to end the year. Some entertaining baseball. Playoff baseball is always fun. But yeah, we're talking about football again. We've seen 2 weeks. So here's just some early reactions. We're just going to go through the teams. We're going to go through the 2-0 teams first, then the 1-1 teams, then the 0-2 teams. And then, so it's going to be a pretty quick episode in terms of, how it's structured.
Content especially. It's just going to be, our reactions.
Just our early reactions.
So it's not like we're going too crazy. And no trades have happened. No bad injuries, knock on wood, have happened so far. Of course, we've had, J.K. Dobbins and then... and then last night, and then
Rogers, Chubb, Dobbins.
Okay. I'm a little wrong.
Yeah, no, it's been tough.
Injuries.
We'll get into the injuries when we talk about specific teams, and obviously, I'm sure there will be injuries that we don't mention.
Last year, week 1 had
Lance was
12
done.
Injuries.
Lance's career ended.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. But in the first 2 weeks of last season, especially when we were covering, I felt like I had to write down 14 injuries per week, and now it's just it's 4 big names, and horrible they are. But
next episode will be a NHL season preview. So for all the hockey fans, you won't have to wait much longer.
And then after that, we got the basketball preview, of course, because it's a week later. Mm-hmm. Basketball starting a little late this season. You're saying?
Yeah, October 24th. I feel like it is pretty late. It usually is mid to late October, but it seems then, especially late.
It feels later. When you play 2K, that seems normal, but in real life, it seems like October, the 13th.
But once all those 3 leagues are operating, the formatting will just be, we'll talk about a little bit about football, a little bit about hockey, a little bit about basketball.
We'll go over some headlines and then see how we feel about them at that moment.
Yeah, and that'll be the episode. But for now, doing football. So
hopping in.
If you are passionate about that team, we can start with that team.
All right, I'll start with my team that's at the top of my list, the third on yours. I'm starting off...
This is no power rankings.
No power rankings. I just kind of wrote these down. I think we both kind of just wrote these down when we were doing our various things throughout the day, and we're looking at the standings. So for me, the first team I wrote down was the Dolphins. So impressive. They look so good, and they look legit, and especially Tua. He looks like the real deal. I mean, I'm not going to go so crazy with it, but on the broadcast, they were flipping it and comparing him to Marino, which was high praise. We'll say that much. But no, in a Tua way, he looked good. He was consistent, and I think that's the biggest thing. And then speaking of consistently Tyreek Hill, he owns the league right now. He's now a 99 in Madden, so yeah. Other than that, the defense actually looks surprising. They've had big injuries, and they've no Jalen Ramsey so far this season, but especially in that last game, Van Ginkel stepping up huge on the outside, and it felt like you heard his name every day. Yeah, every play.
Yeah, Van Ginkel was good. First game, the defense was a little sus against the Chargers, but it was a tougher offense.
They pulled through and still got the win, and that's more what I expected from their defense. Mm-hmm. That what happened in that first week.
Yeah, but the second week, no, they took care of business against the Patriots. Their offense, credit to the Patriots defense. Sometimes the offense was struggling, but they still came out on top. Just for each of the teams, I kind of just wrote a brief thought, and I said with Tua healthy, offense is going to be tough to stop for a full game. And that goes to that point that I was saying. It's yes, defenses are going to get stops here and there, but not the entire game. And all it takes is one play for this team to, march 60 yards down the field. All of a sudden, they're in the red zone. They've got, the 4 fastest guys or something like that. 4 fastest 40-yard dash.
Waddle, they're all
Devin Akaney.
Some of the fastest guys in the league.
But Akane has yet to really do anything.
Yeah, he's just kind of been there.
They trust Mostert, I guess.
And it's a hard offense to really crack in and find a spot in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think what will be their downfall if they start to kind of crumble is maybe a little bit of lack of depth in the receiver position. Nobody
and running back position.
Nobody's really stepped up as that wide receiver 3 through 2 weeks. It's just kind of the Hill and Waddle show. But yeah, I don't know. So that's, our thoughts on Miami. I think they've got a real good shot to win the AFC East. I think it's probably just going to come down to those head-to-head games against Buffalo, because Buffalo looks good as well.
Yeah, Buffalo looked good, especially in that second game, but we'll get into them.
Yeah. Next team is the Baltimore Ravens. What I wrote for them was legit. Lamar is second among starting QBs with a 74.6% completion percentage. And if he's completing nearly 75% of his passes, it's going to be really hard to beat this team.
Get in the way of.
Because, we know he can run the ball, but if he's passing efficiently, it's a really scary sight. He was spreading the ball very well, doing his best Mahomes impression, getting the ball to like 8 different receivers, I'm pretty sure it was last game. So that's a big thing.
Yeah, doing some sidearm throws and whatnot. I heard on the broadcast, they were like, "Ooh, it's a Mahomes-like throw from Lamar Jackson."
No, Lamar, I think that this game this past weekend against the Bengals was one of his best games as a passer in his career. He still had like almost 50, he had like 50-something rushing yards.
Yeah.
So as his fantasy owner, I want to see him run the ball a little more, but, just the way this offense is, it doesn't need him to run the ball
for a
for 100
fan,
yards.
You honestly don't want that. You want him to stay just in the pocket and make these passes because he's doing it well.
Exactly. But, he did come up with a few big runs, especially to seal the game late. I think he got like a big first down when they needed it. And then their defense is also very solid. It was better in that first game. But, Cincinnati Bengals are a tough team, and they did have a punt return touchdown, so it's like their defense only gave up 17 of those 24 points.
More of a special teams. For me, the first thing I wrote was look legit. They just look like a legit team and better than the other teams in the AFC North. That's the biggest thing I've noticed, is that they just look above the Bengals, above the Steelers, and above the Browns right now.
Mm-hmm. And they're the safest team, I'd say, right now to bet on. Like, sure, the Browns, Steelers, and Bengals could, win the AFC North realistically. It's only been 2 weeks, but I think just in terms of who looks like they're going to be best all season long. And they've had some injuries already. J.K. Dobbins, Mark Andrews missed that first game, and Lamar didn't pass as well in that first game. He didn't have his number one, guy, and I think with Mark Andrews in the lineup, it opens up space for other guys. Zay Flowers has looked really good.
Zay Flowers looks
yards after
NFL
catch.
ready is the biggest thing I wrote for him.
Flowers
looks NFL ready, and Lamar hasn't had to go off. Which in that second game he did, but in the first game he didn't, and they still picked up a win.
Mm-hmm. Odell has looked pretty solid. He's dealing with a bit of an ankle injury, I'm pretty sure right now.
Expected.
We'll see. Rashad Bateman is yet to do a whole lot. But yeah, it's been a team that's been very deep for a while, like in terms of like next guy's going to step up. They've dealt with injuries. So this year, as long as they don't get too injured, I could see the Ravens being honestly the number one seed in the AFC, like over a full season. Like
that's tough, but that's a prediction.
Like, them and Miami, of the 2-0 teams, they're actually the only two 2-0 teams in the AFC. Every other team has experienced a loss, so it's a real advantage going into week 3. I don't know their exact opponent in week 3. Actually, I feel like I should because I have Lamar in fantasy, but I don't know.
I haven't picked up their D at all. But moving on to the NFC now. First team I wrote down was the Cowboys, because I just wanted to say off the bat that I was wrong. They look good. They look so good. The offense was really rolling, and Dak Prescott especially is just working. Mm-hmm. And the defense was season ranked 1 in certain fantasy leagues, which is just incredible. Of course, they could still fall apart, and I will still be rooting for them. Of course, having 3 2-0 teams in their division, something's going on there. Yeah. But they look good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I wrote down was that their defense is top 3 in the league. However, let's wait until week 5. So they had the Giants in week 1, whose offenses looked, pretty unimpressive this season, other than in the second half against Arizona, but they were kind of forced to go off in the second half.
Arizona too.
The Zach Wilson Jets, need I say more? And then this week they're playing the Cardinals, so that's probably going to be another crazy defensive game. And then the Patriots the week after that. Yeah. They finally play a real offense in the 49ers in week 5, so I think that'll be like, if they can beat the 49ers and have as dominant of a game as they've had these first 2 weeks,
the 49ers,
then I'll be sold. I really think a weird part of me is thinking they're going to win the division just because it hasn't been a repeat division winner in so long.
I can't say that. I can't say that when the Eagles are also 2-0.
Eagles are also 2-0, but Dallas has looked really good. But honestly, their defense has been incredible. But what impresses me the most is them putting up 30 points on the Jets defense. Because as a Bills fan, that Jets defense is a tough defense. And the fact that Dak was able to, I'm pretty sure, turnover free, Just stick with the run game, make throws when you need to make throws. They didn't have Brandon Cooks that game. I like Dallas. I think they're going to be a real threat in the NFC.
I can't see them coming first in their division still because the Eagles are 2-0 and they look like they're going back to the Super Bowl right now. That's how strong they look, and that's how like the revamped defense also looks so nice with their Georgia Bulldogs coming in, and then the offense is exactly what we saw last year. Like I can't not pick them to go back to the Super Bowl right now.
Yeah, I think the second game was a little more encouraging in terms of what you saw. With DeAndre Swift, he didn't really get going in that first game. Gainwell was actually the main running back, and we'll see when Gainwell's back in.
For week 2, which
we'll see what happens. But I think Swift should be the guy who's getting the majority of carries there. What I wrote down was just too talented to be anything worse than good, and that Jalen Carter's a beast.
Yeah, he's so good.
He's going to be very good, just a disruptor on the inside. And yeah, exactly. We saw that already in the Minnesota game, that he's just going to make things very hard for opposing defenses. And if he's locked in, he was arguably the number one talent from the draft last year. You could put him and Bryce Young, Bijan Robinson as the best players. But yeah, that happens every so often in sports where just a player before the draft, like think about Laramie Tunsil with his his gas mask bong, and then now he's like an all-pro tackle in the league. But yeah, I think Philadelphia versus Dallas, that's going to be a very, very, very intriguing, division race.
Yeah, that'll be one to watch for the rest of the season. And then the last leg of that 2-0 race, the Commanders. Mm-hmm. What are they doing here?
Yeah, I just wrote down Cards and Broncos. So maybe not the best 2-0 team on here. But Howell is 3-0 to begin his career, and he looks to be that guy. There's other teams where it's like you look at their quarterback and they're young. And they're showing some promise, but you don't know for sure if they're going to be that guy forever, Justin Fields. But Howell looks like quarterback is not something that's on Washington's radar. They don't have to worry about it. Yeah. They don't have to be involved in those rumors because they have their guy.
It looks like they got another like Fitzpatrick and like Kirk Cousins mold, a guy that they're just going to have for a little while.
Mm-hmm. Who's a little more mobile too. True. I think Howell, he was a 4th or 5th round pick. He could end up being the best quarterback from that draft class.
Yeah, from North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. And then, I guess that we've segued very nicely between these teams. Yeah. I'll use that to segue into another quarterback from that draft class, Desmond Ridder and the Atlanta Falcons, who are 2-0.
I'm loving this. I'm loving what they got going right now. That offense is just so much fun to watch, and it's good. Mm-hmm. And Ridder looks good enough to be the guy, the vessel that offense runs through.
Yeah,
of course, Bijan is getting most of the touches. Their run offense, like a run focus. But in that week 2 game, Ridder won the game for them.
He had to make a comeback.
He won the game for them.
They were down
and
2
Ridder
scores.
Was their guy. Mm-hmm. It was incredible to watch. I've loved the Falcons so far.
Yeah, I wrote down they're my favorites in the NFC South right now. I picked them to win the division, but through 2 weeks, that's completely validated.
I've completely
I don't
swapped.
like the other teams that much. And then their D is much improved from last season. The off-season, acquisitions.
Yeah,
I'll
get into that later when we talk about because I wrote down a few things for the 3 teams I knew I was gonna watch, and I wrote down a bit about their defense just because it's so solid.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last thing I wrote was, "Come on, Pitts."
It's not him. It's not him.
But like, I don't know, man. Like,
it's
more so just like, come on, Pitts. Get involved. Like,
throw it to Pitts.
If Kyle Pitts is a let's put fantasy words in here, but if he's like a top 5 fantasy tight end on a weekly basis, like this Falcons offense is going to be nuts. The offense
needs to go to Pitts is the only thing. You see him open on every play, and he's just not in the reads for the offense. Ridder looks towards Drake London. He looks towards Bijan on a check down. He'll even look towards Mac Hollins before they go to Pitts. It's just the offensive philosophy, and it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm. I would not like owning him in Dynasty just because he's so talented, but is he going to get that opportunity? We'll see. It might not be in Atlanta.
Yeah, anytime he gets the opportunity, he's going to be a guy. He's going to be a guy everyone knows.
Mm-hmm. I think he's, again, what I wrote about the Philadelphia Eagles, too talented. He's too talented to, waste away his career. No segue for this one, but staying in the same division, the New Orleans Saints are 2-0.
Saints somehow 2-0. This ain't going to last.
Yeah, I wrote down playing for playoff participation. Kamara will help. But I don't see this team as being capable to win a playoff game. Like, maybe they're a wild card in the NFC, maybe they win the NFC South, but I just don't see the Saints as doing anything with Derek Carr as their quarterback.
The best bet they'd have is to face the Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
And they are going to lose to the Falcons if they make the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Falcons might go 6-0 in the division.
At this point, they look head and shoulders better.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I'm still mad that the Panthers lost to the Saints because that was really a winnable game.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Panthers just
It's like,
fell apart.
they're 2-0, but
it frustrates me. They
Panthers
don't
won
look
that
that
game.
good. They
Mm-hmm.
don't. The Saints don't look that good, and as well as the Panthers. Panthers look horrendous right now, but still, they looked like they were able to beat the Saints.
Mm-hmm. And then the last 2-0 team from that division, 2 NFC divisions have 3 2-0 teams, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, to surprising a lot of people, started 2-0.
Including me.
But I wrote down, if Baker continues solid play, look out.
Yeah.
Because their defense is great. We know that. Their defense is back to what it was, when they went on to the Super Bowl. Like an elite defense, makes plays. But Baker Mayfield has been really nice. He had a bit of a turnaround last year in LA, and I was glad that he went somewhere where he could be a starter and he didn't just accept that he was a career backup, because now he has a chance to completely revitalize his career and legitimately be that guy in Tampa.
Yeah, the first thing I wrote down and the first thing that I texted you after watching football this weekend was just, I love Baker in Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's such a fit. It's such a good fit. It's just so good for his personality and the energy he brings. Tampa Bay needed a guy like this ever since Tom left, and even in that final year of Tom Brady, they needed a guy with more energy just for that roster.
Yeah, and exactly, like, them losing Tom Brady, everybody counted them out, and I think he's the perfect quarterback to lead a team that people counted out, because he's, certainly been counted out many times before.
This entire offseason, including by me.
So that that offense has, enough weapons for him to work with. Mike Evans has been
with any quarterback.
Mike Evans
Johnny
has been
Manziel
crazy.
in college, Jameis Winston throwing 30 picks. He can literally work well with any quarterback in the entire NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And in college too. Like, you could literally have anyone throwing it to Mike Evans. He's so awesome.
Yeah, and Godwin is a great, wide receiver 1 in some games, and then wide receiver 2 if Mike Evans is going off. I like Rachaad White as that running back.
Rachaad White had a big week in week 2 there too.
Yeah, exactly. He was able to, punch in a few scoring opportunities, and I think that's going to be a big thing about this team is, are they going to be able to finish drives? Are they going to be able to get in the end zone? Because with their defense, if they can score between 20 and 30 points a game,
they'll win games.
Exactly. They'll win games, and this was a team where I had them as the 4th place team in the NFC South. I know you did too, but they could win it. Even if they don't win it, I could see them making a wild card push. I like them more than I like the Saints.
I like them more than the Saints to make wild card at this point too.
Mm-hmm. And then the last 2-0 team staying in the NFC is the San Francisco 49ers. I wrote down just one sentence. I wrote, Christian McCaffrey is no question the offensive player of the year if he's healthy the entire season.
He's so good.
He had 150 rushing yards against the Steelers, 100-something last week. I'm playing him in fantasy this week, and I'm looking at him being a running back having a 19-point projection, which is just nuts. And the fact that that's not unrealistic too, just for a running back to have quarterback projections, is crazy. And their defense is exactly who they are. A good solid defense. It's gonna take a bit for their defense to get into full form, because they had the Bosa contract situation this offseason, and they lost their defensive coordinator of last year. He's the new head coach in Houston. But Brandon Ayuk had a big game week 1. Debo had a big game week 2. Kittle hasn't really yet to have a breakout game, but those are 3 great receiving options. McCaffrey's a good receiving option as well. They have enough for Brock Purdy to just, if he plays mistake-free football, they could be the 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, the first thing I wrote for them is just Purdy is so real. He's a quarterback. He's a legit bona fide quarterback. I'd rather have him over Daniel Jones. He's a legit QB, and in my mind, them and the Eagles are the only Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. I don't think the Cowboys are still. I think it's between them and the Eagles for who's going to get back to that Super Bowl game for another year. Mm-hmm. And I don't see any two teams.
I could very much so see.
I don't see any
them
two
meeting
teams
in the NFC
on
Championship
their level.
Yeah.
The Eagles and the
NFC
49ers
Championship
are just too good.
And then the storylines being this year would be different because we have Purdy healthy.
Yeah, and all that. So we'll see.
And then he'll get injured on the first drive.
But really, it's it's them and the Eagles in the NFC. I don't see any other team on their level.
Mm-hmm. And then can they go the distance and win the Super Bowl is the question. This kind of segues into our 1-1 teams. The first team I have is the Kansas City Chiefs. The thing I wrote about them is their defense better than their offense?
Yeah, that surprising play from a lot of like the middle linebacker.
Their
for them.
defense
I
is
can't remember his name
Nick
right now.
Bolton.
Bolton, yeah.
Bolton,
He's stepping up.
He's
huge.
great.
He looks like he's putting in
He's an elite linebacker.
He's putting in a run for like AFC Defensive Player of the Year right now. He's been that good.
Yeah, he was put on notice to me 2 seasons ago. They had a close game where the Broncos were about to beat them. Not the Russell Wilson Broncos, the Drew Lock Broncos, or maybe Teddy Bridgewater Broncos.
One of the two.
And the Broncos were literally probably going to win the game. They were in the red zone, and Bolton forced a fumble and ran it back from like 90 yards. And then I was like, okay, this is who this guy is. And then, ever since then, he's really
just
stepped
put
up his
on the
play.
map for me this season.
But yeah, their offense only 18.5 points per game so far. They didn't need to do that much this week against Jacksonville.
Yeah,
because
Jacksonville
their
was
defense was so great.
Themselves, yeah. For me and the Chiefs, I wrote I still see them as the team to make it out of the AFC. I still like them over the Bills, over the Dolphins.
Ravens. I don't know.
Ravens is the toughest game. Ravens would be.
What I like as a Bills fan from what I've seen from Kansas City so far is they don't look like the superhuman Chiefs that they were last year.
We've only seen Kelsey in 1 week coming off injury, and even with Kelsey back, he made Sky Moore better. He made Tony better. So it's like, give them a few more weeks to really run with their full offense and give Rice more time to grow as a rookie. Mm-hmm. We could be singing a different tune and say the Ravens take a step back.
I still think they're the team to beat right now in the AFC until proven otherwise. But 1-1, and I don't see this as a 1-1 situation where they're going to finish 16-1.
No, not at all.
Yeah, 16-1. I going into this season, it was hard for me to justify the Chiefs losing 2 games, but now I see this more as like a 12-5 to 13-4 team, which is still really good.
Oh yeah,
still going to win that division.
Oh, by far, hands down.
Which is kind of like that division's turned so sour.
We'll get more
in like
into
1 year,
but it's so sad that the Raiders are tied for the lead in that division right now, just because they're also 1-1.
Yeah,
I really don't like that roster.
Yeah, I wrote exposed by Bills because they had a squeaky win against the Broncos in week 1, and then they got obliterated. They lost by 4 touchdowns to the Bills. And then I wrote, is Renfrow a one-season wonder, ? Last week, Jacoby Myers misses the game. You would expect Renfrow to step up and be that wide receiver too. He had 1 reception.
Is he a one-season wonder? That's a genuine question.
Because he had 1,000 yards, and he was like hype 2 years ago.
Yep.
And then now he's just...
last season
just
he
a
was
decoy,
nothing.
just a glorified decoy who can run really sick routes. But I don't know, if I'm a defense, I'm not game planning for Hunter Renfrow.
Not anymore. And
I do think them having Tay probably affects him because
but even then Tay should demand more attention and open the field up for him more, and yet it seems to have done the opposite. It seemed to have limited his catches, limited his routes, and given him more defensive attention, or at least they're running him into more defenders.
Mm-hmm. I think Tay in Las Vegas is going to be very much like Calvin Johnson in Detroit. I think he's still going to be one of the best receivers in the NFL. He was great against the Bills. Like, he, on that first drive, pretty much made every single catch, got the touchdown. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be much success for the rest of his career if he stays in Las Vegas.
Especially for the Raiders.
But they lost to a team who's also 1-1, the Bills. I wrote bounce back in a big way, and they're still one of the elite teams. Week 1 was a bit shaky. Obviously, Josh Allen had 4 turnovers on his own, but they bounced back. They won. They put up 38 points on the Raiders. Not that that's a crazy defense,
it's not
but
crazy,
being able to put up 40
they
points.
They just clicked fully.
Yeah.
For me,
no turnovers for Allen.
For the Bills, I just read I don't know how to feel. Just losing to the Rodgers-less Jets was so tough. Like, such a tough pill to swallow, but it was only week 1, and they came out in week 2, and they were like, oh, yeah, that's the Bills. Mm-hmm. But does it mean anything if it's against that Raiders team?
Yeah.
Of course, the defense performing as
well
as they did.
The Jets' defense was crazy week 1. Divisional games are always tough. And it was a home game for the Jets on 9/11, so there's some motivating factors.
It was big for them. But still, it's like I don't know how to feel. I'm gonna wait a few more weeks and then I'll properly tell you.
I believe in
if I
the
believe.
Bills more than I believe in the Chiefs right now.
I believe in the Chiefs more than I believe in the Bills right now. The Bills just worry me a bit that like one good performance isn't gonna do it for me. Where the Chiefs won a tough game, like where they didn't have to step up too bit just because their defense did it all for them.
Yeah.
Like if everything fires on all cylinders for the Chiefs, that would be like what that week 2 game was for the Bills. I need the Bills to win a game where everything's not firing.
Yeah.
And they have not done that this season, and it's just like, I want to see that first.
Yeah. I don't think we'll see it this weekend against Washington.
I think that'll be another.
The Bills are going to
all,
win that
all
game.
cylinders will be firing.
In week 1, a big reason why the Jets were able to win was because the run game was working. Breece Hall had, a couple big plays, over 100 yards. This last week, the Bills held Josh Jacobs to -9 rushing yards.
That's incredible. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, and that's the only
the
thing
leading rusher from last year.
That's the only thing I can't take away from them is that week 2 proved their defense is legit. No matter
Week
what.
1 proved their defense is legit.
That's true, but it's just tougher in a game when your offense also gives up all the turnovers. Where it's like I'm not thinking about the defense right now, but even then, with all the turnovers, the defense stood pat.
Mm-hmm. Their defense in week 1 against the Jets. Other than, they held the Jets to 6 points, and then Josh Allen fumbles. The Jets take over at, the 30, go on, a little drive, and then have that sick catch by Garrett Wilson.
Yeah,
Other than that,
nice
they've given up 16 points all year.
And then later on was a punt return touchdown, too, so
yeah,
that's a special team. So.
But they had all the momentum. Jets had all the momentum at that point.
Did.
Once we punted that ball,
and then,
the game was
moving
over.
on to the Jets, 1-1 themselves.
I wrote season done with Wilson as QB.
Yeah. I just wrote fuck the Aaron Rodgers injury.
Yeah.
That sucks. It's just not something you want to watch. I just wanted to see the season unfold with him there because of the storylines and how just exciting that would have been. And now he's not there. And as you said, Wilson QB1, season's done.
Mm-hmm.
They should tank for Caleb Williams.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. But I also wrote they could push for playoff with a bridge QB. If they were to go out and get a Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Brissett, I could honestly see this team winning 10 games just because their defense is so good.
Who wants to see that? Who wants to see that come playoff time?
I don't want to see them have Caleb Williams next year.
But just for the league and just of course not for you as a Bills fan, but for the league in general, that would be so hype.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
That's like a number 1 French player going to Montreal in the NHL. I might hate it, but for the league, that's good.
Fair enough.
I would hate it.
Yeah, Jets. I just think it's the season's done if Zach Wilson's their QB. Week 1, he was okay. He wasn't great, and
okay is a word for it too.
But he was lucky that his defense was playing well, and Josh Allen was probably having one of the worst games of his career.
He didn't outplay Josh Allen in that first game. Still, even with it being one of his worst.
And then they went down to the Dallas team, and they were down and had to throw the ball. Their rushing game was terrible. They had 9 rushing attempts in the entire game, and he threw 3 picks because if he's just gonna have to force the ball and throw it 30 plus times, he's gonna get a pick. I honestly don't think he could throw 35 times and not intercept.
Not with the aware or and at least have 15 drop balls. He's not gonna get 20.
He has a good arm, but he just doesn't have what it takes to be an NFL quarterback, and that's a big thing. Poise in the pocket, he's just scared. It was
Bryce Young's pocket poise is better than him, even if he doesn't have the arm that Wilson would have.
Mm-hmm. Moving on from the Jets, I don't know how to segue this. I guess I can go into an NFC team because we just did 4 AFC teams. I'll talk about the Giants. I wrote, can I change my playoff pick? Their D is garbage so far.
Their D is so bad, and that week 1, wow.
Week 1 was just terrible.
That was a historically terrible game.
Tough way to start the season, and then they follow it up by almost losing to the Arizona Cardinals and making Josh Dobbs look like Patrick Mahomes.
He looked so good, though.
Yeah.
He looked exciting, which was hilarious.
He scared the eyebrows off of himself. He was like, whoa, he played so well. But, yeah, I don't know. I think losing Saquon for a few weeks, that's going to hurt them.
It's going to ruin them. They should.
He's ruled out for this week for sure.
They should be 0-2.
They're playing the 49ers.
And then without Saquon, they should be 0-6 by the time he's back. Of course, they're 1-1, but they should really be 0-2 right now. It's just so tough to watch. They're one of the hardest teams to watch in the league.
Mm-hmm. And they brought in Waller. They brought in weapons for Daniel Jones.
Waller actually in week 1 looked solid.
Yeah.
He got a LeBron comparison. That was wild.
Interesting. I didn't see that.
Yeah, he got LeBron comparison in week 1. It's when you got LeBron down the field, you might as well throw to him. And it's
Yeah.
Not sure I'm feeling that way about Waller.
I guess just like height and size, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know. But, I don't really... This team, I would have expected... If they were going to be legit this season, I would have expected them to play Dallas closer than they did. And I would have expected them to beat the Cardinals handily. And they didn't do those two things. And because of that,
I'm so sad.
Like, the NFC is so shallow, in my opinion, that sure, they could be the 7th seed in the NFC, if they string things together. I just don't have a lot of faith.
I have the Buccaneers above them now, after what we've seen in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I do too, but I would not have them near the playoffs in the AFC.
It'll be interesting to see a little midweek standings predictions just from us, just to see where we differ from where we started. Because it'll be so interesting to see how we think the season's going to end now. Like, I know I have so many different selections as we go on. A big one, actually, for me, another 1-1 team is the Seahawks staying in the NFC. I'm just so disappointed watching them. They're just, like, they're 1-1, sure, but they just don't look good. And it just looks like this season's one to be like, wow, we're not the same team we were last year. They brought back all the same guys. They should have grown. The defense hasn't stepped up. Geno Smith looks like he's not the same quarterback as last season.
He did a good game this week.
He did, but it looks like NFL defenses are getting used to what he's doing. JSN does look good at least, but still, their receiver core is not going off like he wanted to. And their run game is non-existent so far. Kenneth Walker had a good game, but when actually trying to win games, they're not running the ball well.
Yeah,
their week one was big for me.
I wrote consistency is going to make or break this team. They looked pretty good in week 2, able to beat the Detroit Lions, who beat the Chiefs.
But even then, the
Seahawks are better than the Chiefs.
Points to the Lions.
But yeah, their D is just not there, and I think it's going to hold them back all season.
Yeah, and it's just really disappointing. It looked like a defense.
And when you go back and you look at games where Geno has a crazy stat line, I'll say, okay, go back and see how their defense played in that game, because he's only going to have like crazy games if their defense is making him have crazy games. Otherwise, he's just going to,
he's Geno Smith still.
Hand the ball off, pass it to DK. But I don't know. I still think they can make the playoffs. But anybody
who for that last spot.
Anybody who was saying Seahawks for the division, what are you saying now? I think San Francisco is going to
they're going to
run away with that division
with it.
But yeah, Seattle, I'm losing faith in, and it's hard because last season was such a step in the right direction.
It was.
So it's so tough to see them take a step back.
It's just disappointment.
One thing I will say, as much as I do love Geno Smith, imagine if they had made a push for Anthony Richardson in the draft. I would have really liked that.
This roster would have been complete at that point.
And that's a playoff team in the NFC. The way that he's looked so far, I guess we'll go into Indianapolis.
Yeah, talk about the Colts a little bit. And for me...
I just have better than we thought, question mark.
I have loving Richardson, and he was worth the pick completely.
I have AR is going to be fun, but scary. He's already gotten injured
twice. He's already gotten a concussion.
Literally in this first game, he, at the end was held out because of an ankle or something like that, and then he's in concussion protocol right now.
He's a scary quarterback to watch, but the biggest thing is that the rest of the team plays up to his level when they're on the field. He just made the Colts roster look better, when in the last 3 seasons we've seen the quarterbacks bring down the Colts roster to their level.
Yeah,
it feels like he
elevates things.
Elevating the team and the team culture. It's so much fun.
Exactly. The culture specifically, things like, even though, they are 1-1, they did win a game, but I don't think they're going to have a great season, but I think they'll be a fun team all season. Their pass defense is terrible, though. Calvin Ridley tore him up in week 1, and then Nico Collins and Tank Dell tore them up in week 2. So if your receivers are playing against Indianapolis in fantasy, start them. But yeah, I think they'll be a fun team, but I don't have much expectation.
Fun is the biggest thing, and it's crazy. I didn't think they'd be 1-1 at this point, but because of Anthony Richardson, it's pretty much because of him.
Yeah,
he's elevated the
Texans,
entire team around.
So
of course, but still they're facing C.J. Stroud. Didn't C.J. Stroud have 300 passer yards in that first week? So it's like that's a guy who has not last week, but still C.J. Stroud in comparison to an Anthony Richardson. I feel like he's not elevating the rest of that roster where they traded for guys and put guys around C.J. Stroud, and they're not being those guys. Whereas Anthony Richardson, he just came into a situation. He had Pittman, he had these other guys to throw to, and it's just working. Where even with Bryce Young, they brought in guys to build around him, and it's not really working. He hasn't built that camaraderie. He hasn't been elevating the Panthers either.
Yeah, and I think Richardson as well will be a fan favorite, not just for Colts fans, but just like a general
NFL.
around
He's
the
gonna-
league
he's gonna be an
fan
NFL
favorite.
favorite.
He's
Like
just
a
one of
Lamar
those players.
Jackson type
Like
was.
everybody who watches basketball loves Anthony Edwards. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Everybody who watches
Everyone
football
loves
is gonna
De'Aaron
love Anthony
Fox,
Richards.
like,
So
type thing, yeah.
next team, another NFC team, the Los Angeles Rams are 1-1.
A surprising one. Another
I
one.
wrote might actually be back? Question mark.
I wrote frauds.
They beat the Seahawks in week 1 and they only lost by 7 to the 49ers.
That run game is too good to be true. I refuse to believe that
We'll
they're
see,
able
exactly.
to pound the rock that consistently, that good with the guys they have. And it looks like they're in trade talks now for
With Cam Akers.
With Cam Akers.
Mhm.
So it's just surprising. You look at them and they have a plus 10 point differential. Like they had a close game week 2 and they really won week 1. It's like, I don't know.
But the NFC, like
It's
I
the
could
NFC.
see them swapping with the Giants.
Yep.
In,
I can see
in my
them swapping
playoff.
with the Giants, yeah. Like, but it's just like I can see them in the I can see the
And
Buccaneers falling
and
too,
you have to
and I
assume
can
they
see-
go 2-0 against the Cardinals.
Yep.
So there's 2
Even
more wins.
then, the Cardinals
I
could pick
wrote,
up
and then
a win.
another thing I wrote for the Rams is Puka plus Cup is gonna go crazy. Like I
Yeah.
think that
Having
offense
no
had a lot of
Cup
question
is-
marks, but now like if they bring back Cup, the way Puka's been playing, I think he'll continue to play very well. Who would have thought that he would be the leading offensive rookie of the year candidate? Amon Ra talks about the receivers drafted in front of him. Puka, I'm pretty sure, was the 19th receiver off the board in this year's draft.
Yeah, wow. And he's been so good. And then their offense is really proving that if they can't keep pounding the ball, they will get Cooper Kupp back, which will be.
Yeah, Kyron Williams has looked like a
He looks
solid
legit,
running
but
back one so far.
I'm a wait and see, and then I'll commit to how I feel about it.
Yeah, their defense isn't what it used to be, but they do still have Aaron Donald, creating pressure, and I think in the long run it'll be good that their defense is very inexperienced because they'll get that experience. There's snaps to be had. They'll learn from Aaron Donald, and then maybe if they have a midseason, a good draft pick, and then I think they have their draft pick finally back from the Stafford trade. And then maybe some free agent signings. The Rams could be back next year.
Next year.
I don't see them as like a contender, but I could see them as like a 9-8 squeak in.
They could squeak in and make that final wild card spot.
Like they could
And lose
they
to the
could they could
Falcons,
replace the Seahawks as second place in that division.
Which would, but I have them above the Seahawks, and it really feels like that might be true.
Back to the AFC, talk about the Cleveland Browns. I wrote they lose their best weapon. Now all the pressure is on Deshaun Watson.
And the first thing I wrote is Watson is ass.
Yeah.
In his last 7 starts, he's been statistically one of the worst quarterbacks in the league by QB rating, by completion percentage, by touchdown to interception ratio. He's just not been the guy. And when you watch the games, he looks uncomfortable. He does not look comfortable in the pocket, and he looks like he's...
Which is weird because they have a good
they have a good
line.
offensive line. It just doesn't look like he knows who he's throwing to half the time. And then now with Nick Chubb out, as you said, it's really in his hands.
Yeah, exactly. I think there was a very clear path for the Cleveland Browns to be a very good team this season because they had Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson wasn't going to have to, win games by himself. Not that Jerome Ford and now they signed Kareem Hunt a few hours ago. Not that they can't carry the load somewhat. And that run game is still going to be solid. I still think it's going to be a top thing. Exactly, but they don't have Nick Chubb. And Deshaun Watson's going to have to do more now. And
I don't know
we'll
if he
see.
can now.
It didn't look like that against the Steelers, who have a good defense. So I'm interested to see if he can just tear up a crap defense.
And he needs to face the Colts so bad right now.
Yeah,
he really
or the
does.
Raiders.
And and then we'll be singing a different tune on him. But speaking of the Steelers, wow, that D is so good. They're 1-1, and I like them a lot more than the Browns right now. And for the rest of the season, that defense looks good. And T.J. Watt is a Steeler GOAT. Mm-hmm. Steeler GOAT.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of people.
There's so many, but he's putting his name right up there.
Yeah.
Like he's on the Mount Rushmore for sure. Right now.
I would say Big Ben and Terry Bradshaw over him for the moment.
Oh, I'm saying
defensive
defensive. He's defensive GOAT. It's
Maybe
between
Troy
him and
Polamalu.
Troy Polamalu and
Charles Woodson.
a
cornerback.
couple of the old guys. But right now he's putting himself in that conversation, if that GOAT conversation.
I really like their defense. I don't love their offense. I wrote their defense would hold their offense to 0 points.
Oh, absolutely. They would
have a
with
field
Pickett.
day.
I also wrote, is Pickett real? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know.
Honestly,
Don't. I don't feel it.
It's sad because both him and Najee were first-round picks, but
Haji's so bad.
I don't think the fact that they drafted them in the first round means we have to stick with this guy.
Najee especially looks like a tight end is lined up in the backfield.
And it's like the same story for both of them. It was they weren't a player that was expected to go in the first round or should have gone in the first round, but it was just because of the hype around them, like Najee being that hype running back in Alabama,
you know,
and they lost James Conner, so it was like, yeah, we're bringing this hype guy. We're bringing in this hype guy who went to Pitt, Kenny Pickett. You know what I mean?
Top QB in his class.
Yeah, it's like there's a reason that other teams waited on QB that class, in that draft class, because you know they knew in the first round they probably weren't going to get it. But yeah, like
they weren't going to get first round.
But now there's a couple steals, like Howell in the fourth round, Ritter in the third,
and just waiting seems to be the thing. It just Pickett does not look legit. He doesn't look real. Brock Purdy looks better than him. Like I'd have Brock Purdy over him. I'd have Jared Goff over him. Like lots of other guys.
Yeah, they won 9 games last year because of a great defense and a bad offense. But we'll see. I think Cleveland should have won that game.
Oh, definitely.
So
Even
Pittsburgh
with
could be 0-2
Chubb
right
going
now.
down, they should have won. But that defense was like, that's not happening.
I think like just for the sake of Mike Tomlin, they probably go 9-8. But I don't know if they're a playoff team. Missing Deontay Johnson for a few weeks is going to be very tough, because literally. Pickens had that big touchdown, but other than that, he had like 4 receptions on the game. Allen Robinson had 2 receptions on the game. I don't know what Freiermuth did, but I don't think he's done much this season.
He hasn't been very noticeable fantasy-wise, so.
Yeah. And then people are like blaming Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator.
Which he is bad.
He is bad, but it's also like their offense isn't that good.
Yeah.
So, moving on to an offense that is good, but a little bit of a sus defense, Jacksonville. Yep. I wrote T-Law can't fall into relying on Ridley too much. In that first game, Ridley and T-Law looked like they had been playing together their entire careers, and they were amazing.
So nice.
And then it was obvious the Kansas City Chiefs game planned for Ridley. He was held to 2 catches on 8 targets, and they only put up 9 points.
Yeah, it really felt like Ingram
he started to hit Christian Kirk.
Christian
Kirk. Yeah, Zay Jones had 0 receptions that game on 6 targets. You could put that credit to the Chiefs defense, but I just think T-Law, this offense is going to reach its potential if he's spreading the ball, if he's getting everyone involved. I think Christian Kirk last year was a great wide receiver 1. I don't think he needs to become a wide receiver 3 now that Calvin Ridley's there. No. Like he had a great game against the Chiefs.
ETN's looked good all season.
ETN's looked good.
Game's been good.
Big B looked pretty questionable.
We'll see about
But yeah, ETN looked good. Evan Ingram proved that last season wasn't just a one-season wonder. I think he's a solid receiving option. But yeah, their defense has playmakers. I just don't necessarily trust it enough. But I mean, they held the Chiefs to 17 points, but I don't think the Chiefs were like
it's mostly
putting
just
the
like
gas
they're gonna win that division. I still feel like they're gonna win that division. It's just against other top teams, they're not on their level, not yet.
Yeah, the
other team. There's levels to it.
The other team, not Indianapolis, that's 1-1 in that division, is the Titans. I wrote their run defense is one of the best in the league. I think that's one of those like, if your fantasy running back is playing against the Titans, like good luck. Joshua Kelly had a great week 1.
Yep.
With Eckler in the lineup.
Eckler did also have a really big week 1.
Eckler out week 2. People are expecting Kelly to go off. It's like, no, he's playing the Titans, and he was held to like under 50 rushing yards, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there was nothing going on.
But I wrote Tannehill ain't it.
That's exactly what I wrote too. They're not winning more than 7 games with Ryan Tannehill this season.
Yeah, we saw in week 1, 3 picks against the Saints. He made that defense look probably better than it is. People are going to think the Saints have like a top 5 defense because they played the Titans and the Panthers.
Even then, the Panthers
probably the 2 worst
like,
passing offenses in the league, from what we've seen so far. D-Hop, we'll see. Treylon Burks, I would, as a dynasty owner, I'd like to see him used more.
Yeah, but even
I think that benefits
limited,
the team.
He looks good in pieces.
Yeah,
I just need to
see I think what's going to happen with them is they're going to keep going with Tannehill. But if they fall to a situation where they're like 2 or 3 games back from 500, what's the harm in seeing if Malik Willis or Will Levis is that guy?
Yeah, I'm so done with this current roster. I'm so done with it. It's not the roster that's going to do literally anything.
Yeah, last year we saw Sam Howell not get a start until the last week of the season, and then it was like, why weren't we starting this guy all year? I think that could be the same situation with the Tennessee Titans. Will Levis
Whoever they roll
publicly, him and his girlfriend just broke up.
The revenge season.
So it was funny. I was like looking at it just like an hour ago. You know how like she came up on the draft coverage, like.
Yeah.
She apparently like doubled her followers after getting viewed on the draft. Got a deal with Burger King. I don't know what she's doing with Burger King, but yeah, and now they're broken up. So Will Levis revenge season.
We'll see how much of that fame sticks around.
Yeah, and then the last 1-1 team that we haven't talked about is the Green Bay Packers.
Two 1-1 teams though. We haven't talked about the Lions either.
True.
We haven't talked about that race, which looks so good for that for the NFC North. Of that Lions versus Packers race. It looks like it's going to be a legit competition.
It'll be good.
Like, I'm a big fan, and I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
The Packers look surprisingly good. Will compete for that division, and Love can sling it.
Yeah.
Love can really pass the ball, and while he's not special, he fits in that offense, and it's not a bad look for him.
Yeah, I wrote Love looks to be the answer, but the team around him is kind of mid in my opinion. It's like it took MVP seasons from Aaron Rodgers to make this a playoff team. Last year, Rodgers had a mid-year, and they had a mid-year.
Having a Devontae Adams type of guy too.
Yeah, which they don't have. He's done well without Christian Watson. People are like, he's doing this all without their wide receiver one. It's like, but we don't necessarily we haven't really seen Love and Watson, so we don't know.
Last season it was between
one.
Watson and Doubs who's going to be the one, and it started out with the Romeo Doubs being the number one guy last year. So and then
we'll
Watson
see.
took over. Well, of course, wait and see for that.
But yeah, their offense got shut down in that second half by the Falcons, and their defense couldn't get a stop to save their life against the Falcons. The Falcons did everything they needed to do. They won by 1 point on a game-winning field goal.
And yeah, it proved that they are a level above what the Packers are, in my mind.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. Again, Green Bay's one of those teams where it's like they've played the Falcons and lost, and then the Bears and won. So it's like, okay, I want to see a team where I know what they are. You know what I mean? Whereas like the Falcons and the Bears this season are kind of like newer teams, so it's like hard to judge how good the Packers are. But I think the first time the Lions and the Packers play each other, that's how good we'll know each team is.
And that's going to be everyone should.
With
be
Detroit, I said same as Seattle. Just consistency is going to make or break this team.
Yeah.
Week 1, they looked amazing. They beat the Chiefs. They played that game perfectly, and their defense looked good. And then week 2, their run game was terrible, and their defense gave up 37 points.
Which is tough.
Yeah, and then him probably done for the season with a torn pec.
Yeah, painful. For me, I wrote for the Lions. Like, Goff is real. That makes me really happy just to know that he found a spot where he's actually like excelling and found some trust in his coach.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a really enjoyable team to watch. Every single matchup they've had is fun so far.
Yeah.
And Amon-Ra St. Brown is a top 10 wide receiver in the league.
Yeah, I think once Jameson Williams comes back, it'll be a different offense. And then if Jahmyr Gibbs starts to get a little more work, he looked really good in week 1. I didn't see anything in week 2.
Speed option right now, but David Montgomery's definitely getting majority of the share right now.
Yeah,
and
as that running back.
Not a bad thing if you have David Montgomery in comparison to a rookie guy, but I would like to see what Gibbs is capable of. They haven't really tested him yet.
Mm-hmm. But I still do like this Lions team. I still like them to win that division and be a top 3 to 4 seed in the NFC.
Yeah.
I think maybe the Falcons have overtaken them in terms of the division winners I like more.
For sure for me.
They play this week. Yes, they play
Falcons,
this week.
Lions, that's going to be a big one.
Bijan versus Gibbs.
Watching that fully.
That'll be a great game. That's 2 teams. Or I guess Lions were on.
2 in my will watch.
We'll watch. And then, speaking of will watch, these are teams that we don't really care for that much because they're all 0-2.
One of them I do care for, but the rest I could do without.
It's true. Starting with the first 0-2 team, this is a very 0-2 team. Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, the only one that's on my third page of notes, not the second.
I wrote, D is encouraging-ish.
It looks exciting. Especially in that first week, they were swarming.
Like, they're one of the best fantasy defenses right now, just because they've gotten takeaways.
They're fun to watch. They're really exciting. Their celebrations are big. Of course, hitting the Ricky Stacks. Like, it's pretty exciting to watch them. I love it.
Yeah, and I think that's encouraging for the team of the future, Dobbs.
Dobbs, too. Just, he looks fun. He's a fun quarterback.
Yeah, and I think what we'll see from Dobbs this season is him just try to earn his value in the league, because we know that he's not the week 1 starter next year. It's either going to be Caleb Williams or Kyler Murray. So
Yeah.
Dobbs is just going to, while he's the starting quarterback, try to make the most of the situation.
Try to get some money.
But yeah, I wrote, try not to win any games, because that's not what you're trying to do this
Hey,
season.
they almost beat the Giants.
And they almost beat the Giants.
Almost beat the Giants.
Do you think that was more of a Cardinals, like, kind of let them win that, or like a Giants comeback? Like,
the Giants comeback looked so easy.
Yeah.
Everything was working for the Giants in the second half.
mhm.
I mean, if you've seen the
Murr, the
Cardinals head coach, if you've seen their head coach, any speech he gives in the
Yeah.
locker room at half, I'm not listening. It's going in one ear and out the other.
Yeah,
Like,
he seems like a weird dude.
he seems like an interesting head coach for the NFL.
Yeah. It's like maybe they saw Mike McDaniel and they're like, oh, like a weird
Yeah,
dude as head
let's
coach.
get a
That's
weird
fun.
Nerd.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, does not.
The next
does not
0-2
fit the
team,
same.
0-2 team, your favorite team, the Carolina Panthers.
It's not looking good. It's just.
It could be a very long season.
It's not a well constructed roster. There's holes.
To
everywhere.
be fair, it's Bryce Young's first season and then a bunch of free agents on that offense.
Exactly.
So they haven't had time to gel like in game. So I think what I said to you the other day is they could be like the Lions, where they have a terrible first half of the season, and then the second half it's like, okay, this
That's what
team
I'm
will be
hoping
good
for.
next year, and that's what you're hoping for.
Because right now the roster construction just looks slapped together.
I wrote down, would look nice with Marvin Harrison Jr. Oh wait, the Bears have our pick. And something that I find funny is that the Bears have the Panthers pick. They're both 0-2, and the Cardinals have the Texans pick, and they're both 0-2. So this upcoming draft, like, if the season ended today, it would be like two of the 5 are like,
two of the worst teams are just not getting their picks. Like top 5 picks are just being forfeited. Yeah, and both of those trades at the time, I didn't like the trade for the Houston Texans, even though Will Anderson might be great, and I didn't like necessarily like it for the Panthers. Like, I like it grabbing your franchise guy, but like you're gonna miss out on grabbing a franchise guy for your franchise guy.
Yeah, it's true. But going back to Arizona and talking about them having Houston's pick, if they're in a situation, and call me crazy, because Caleb Williams is the real deal, but if they're in a situation where they have the number 1 overall pick, and that Houston pick is also a top 5 pick, I say don't give up on Kyler. Get the most you can for that first overall pick, because someone's going to pay a lot to get Caleb Williams.
Someone's gonna pay
And then
too much.
and then you have Kyler Murray, who, in my opinion, is still a really good quarterback in the NFL.
He's a top quarterback, still top 15.
Exactly. You have Kyler Murray, and then you have whoever you get with that Houston pick, and then you have whatever you get with that Caleb Williams trade back compensation. And I honestly,
Again, it sets them up, especially with
and
the
I
amount of
like
roster
that. I
players
like
they
that
got in
better
the
for them.
trade last year too.
Like, and they've already given so much money to Kyler too. Like I like that better than just
Giving
Kyler Murray a Josh Rosen, treatment. Like, sure, he had a few more years, he got some guaranteed money out of it, but like just giving up on a guy because there's a sexier, more flashy guy, it's just like, I don't like that. If I'm a NFL player and I look at the Arizona Cardinals, I don't like that culture. I don't like that.
Yeah.
They don't
Caleb
trust their own
Williams-
guys.
That's why Caleb Williams doesn't want to go there.
Exactly.
That's why
and
he's threatening to
then
stay
he
in
might not
school.
even go there in general. Like, it might
Yeah.
be an Eli Manning situation where he goes number 1 and forces his way out. But
Which would be
yeah,
funny.
exactly.
So Panthers.
There'll be
not
more
quite
draft talk
set
once
up.
once it's not every team's only played 2 games. Like, once we're like 11 games into the season, it's like, okay, one of these teams is gonna have the number 1 pick type thing. But yeah,
A team that could be is the Bears.
the Bears.
Fields sucks.
Yeah,
Wow.
I wrote Fields being a dark horse MVP
That was
candidate.
the funniest
Dot
thing
dot dot.
of
I'm
all
looking at
time.
you, Adam Rank, who had the Bears going 12-5 in his preseason predictions, and I always find those so laughable. If you've never seen the
They're
yearly
funny.
Adam Rank standings predictions, just go and like look at them, and it's just like, it's crazy. Like,
It's a good chuckle, yeah.
He'll have a team that ends up winning 3 games on the season, winning 10, and he'll have a team that ends up winning 12 games on the season, winning like 7. Like, I'm pretty sure he had the Chiefs missing the playoffs last year.
Like it's incredible, and then of course like Bet365 and all the different sports books also having Fields as a top 3, top 5 guy for odds.
It's
general.
It's like, first of all, to win MVP, you need to be a really good team, and the Bears won't be that.
Nope.
Like, I don't understand why people thought they were going to be a good team
I don't see
when
where
they
it came
literally
from.
were like, okay, we're trading away the number 1 pick. we're like
Because we earned it. Like, they earned the number one pick and then traded it away. And just because they didn't take one, everyone thought they were better than they were.
yeah.
Everyone forgot they literally had the worst season of any team last season just because they traded one and didn't take it.
Yeah,
It's frustrating. It's frustrating. They're bad, and they're one of the least fun teams to watch. They're one of the most fun teams to watch, to root against.
Yeah,
It's hilarious.
Did you see Fields talking about the coaches?
Yeah, he
today?
says he's overcoached, and that's why he makes mistakes. What a joke! Give me a break.
It's like, okay, next game, do you, and he's gonna have 4 turnovers.
It's
maybe he's gonna have 150 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns.
150 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 25 passer yards,
and
I think 4
interceptions. I think him saying he's overcoached is more so him being like, I'm being told to pass the ball more, or wait in the pocket more. It's like I've seen clips where he's literally just like there's wide open guys and he's not.
He's just waiting to run when the play falls apart.
So I don't believe in he's a fun player.
Call us Bears haters because this is ridiculous. We don't.
He's a fun player, but and go back and clip this video. But the Chicago Bears are not going to win the Super Bowl with Justin Fields as their quarterback.
No, never.
Maybe even a playoff game.
Did they make the playoffs? No, not with Justin Fields as their QB.
He's limited, and it's yes he can
Jr.
run the ball, but it's
good.
like defenses got used to Lamar running the ball, but now Lamar is showing that he's a capable passer too. We haven't seen anything from Fields
the run
to
pass
show that he's a capable passer.
Only took over the NFL for 2 seasons, and now it's gone back to earth where the team's not actually how to defend it.
Exactly. All you have to do is have let's just say you're the San Francisco 49ers. Have Fred Warner. Spy.
Yeah, play
Justin
just
Fields.
a slight coverage in the middle of the field.
And then if he starts to take off with the run, it's like, I'm going to go tackle.
Obvious. It's not like he's going to make a play once he tucks the ball.
To be fair, the running back situation, makes things a little, it's like, are you
Herbert,
it's like, with an RPO, it's like, Fields is going to take that ball for himself. He's not going to give it to Khalil Herbert. If not, Khalil Herbert's going to get 3 yards. He's looked unimpressive, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. I got a lot of stock in him this year.
Yeah, he was a really fun player, when given touches in the past, but
not this year.
Yeah,
not a number one guy.
I'd say
a team that's interestingly in the same conversation as them though.
Yeah,
the Bengals. Why are we about to talk about the Bengals after talking about the Bears?
Yeah, so they started 0-2 last year.
Yeah, it's weird that we always see them
is
here.
Different. Last year they lost in Week 1 to the Steelers, who still had T.J. Watt on their defense, and then they lost to the Dallas Cowboys, who have a crazy defense as well. Not to say that the Browns and Ravens defenses aren't good.
They're good.
But it's right now you're 0-2 with 2 divisional losses, and Joe Burrow's calf injury looks like it's gotten worse, not better.
He said it's been re-aggravated, and he'll probably miss a week or 2 now. He'll probably miss the same amount of time as Saquon Barkley does. And
they play the Rams this week.
They have to win that. If the Rams beat the Bengals, that is
if the Rams
really
beat the Bengals
sign.
With Joe Burrow,
that's such a bad sign for the
I say
Bengals season.
Joe sits on the bench until he's fully healed.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm sure they still have their pick.
You might as well just.
I'm sure they still have their pick. The only unfortunate thing about that is that this is T. Higgins' last year under contract. So if they're 2-5 by the time of the deadline, I guess if they're 2-5 they wouldn't give up on the season. But is there a situation where T. Higgins gets moved at the deadline?
That would be crazy to think for this team that many people saw going back to the Super Bowl. But it's just I don't see them there anymore.
It is interesting how momentum is such a big thing. Right now, the way I look at the Bengals, they suck. But last year, going into the playoffs, I knew they were going to beat the Bills because they just looked so good heading into that game.
Yeah.
And right now, they don't have that momentum. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think they'll rebound. I don't think they're going to be 0-17, obviously.
Yeah, they at least have redeeming qualities. They have a good team. Their receiver core is of course still the receiver core. They still do have Joe Burrow.
Exactly, but
they have redeeming qualities.
They do have to play the Chiefs and the Bills this season, so I don't know.
I think they have to win at least one of those games.
Yeah,
either against the Chiefs or against the Bills.
I see this team has. I don't know. I think they're gonna struggle because the AFC is so tough. So if you're not winning your division, you are competing against the field, and there's gonna be some good teams fighting for those wildcard spots.
The field might have the Bills in it.
Exactly. Bills or Dolphins. If it's not the Bills, it's the Dolphins. And right now,
I don't want
putting money that the Bills or the Dolphins are going to be better than the Chiefs.
I don't want to be behind the Bills or the Dolphins at any point because I'm not going to catch them.
Yeah.
And a team that is behind them right now, 0-2 in that division, the Patriots. A roster that has no redeeming qualities.
Good defense.
Kendrick Bourne looks good.
Yeah, I wrote they're letting Max sling it. And
True.
they did play two great teams close. They only lost by 5 points to the Eagles and then by a touchdown to the Dolphins. However, they still lost those games, and if you're a good team, you find ways to win games, and like
They had
they
winnable
might be able
moments.
to play games well and be like a solid team, but it's always just going to be like they played well, they could be good. It's like, yeah, but they still lost.
Yeah, but still they aren't good.
Yeah.
It's like they could be, but they're not. And their run game
It helps
is nothing
it helps that the
special.
Jets are no longer good because they're playing them this weekend. I think they get their first win of the season against the Jets. I think
Yeah,
so.
with that defense.
They beat them
yes.
last year.
With that
was the game
defense,
where it was
yeah,
like 10-3.
And
then
Wilson's gonna, Wilson
is gonna die on the field.
Yeah, no, especially with Wilson still being the starter, they win that game.
I wouldn't be surprised if on the first snap Zach Wilson just throws it to the other team just so he's like, oh, anyways, he's like, I knew I was gonna throw a pick. Let's just get it over with.
That's some high praise right there.
Yeah, not a big Zach Wilson
No,
guy
clearly.
for second overall pick.
He's hard to watch.
That's so crazy how that top three is Trevor Lawrence, who's
Great.
going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, and then Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, who literally both
Two of the
might
biggest
have
busts ever.
might have less than 10 wins in their NFL careers. I don't know. I mean, Wilson might have that at this point.
I don't think so.
I don't
know how many I don't know how many wins he was part of last season before Mike White took over.
Yeah,
Like-
or Joe Flacco.
Elite Joe Flacco. It's scary where it's like they have no improvement ever. And it's like they've been bad. Where it's like the Texans, they've also been bad. They're at least showing improvement. I like CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I wrote Stroud showing promise, but this team is still very
It's
young.
just frustrating to watch at times. It's just like, for me, it's just Pierce is being screwed. Damian Pierce.
Yeah, they're missing a
Because they're
lineman
playing-
right now.
They're playing from behind every game, too. So there is no game script that really, helps the run game for them. And then, of course, like you just said, missing O-lineman, where it's like,
Yeah.
wow, they're forcing a lot. It's a team that forces everything.
Yeah, Curtis will, once we get into NBA talk, he'll let you know that he's picked the Sacramento Kings to win the championship
They're going to win
in
it.
2024, 7 years ago or whatever.
They're going to win it this season coming up.
This Houston Texans team is like the Kings 10 years ago, where it's like, yeah, they have talent and young pieces. You could say Houston Texans 2027, or that's
early.
That's early.
But
Like
you could
Houston
say
Texans
2029.
2030,
Yeah,
2029
agreed.
Super Bowl champions, and I'd be like, okay, but
Yeah.
they're not going to do anything.
They're
this
not
year.
ready yet. And it's like,
They
I could
don't have
see
their
it.
pick.
I
It's
could see
crazy.
them little pieces, but
It's
yeah.
so wild.
Not
Like
having
these
that pick
teams
this
not having
year.
their picks.
Like another team that would have loved to have Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah,
That would have been
I
perfect.
understand it more in the situation of the Panthers getting that number one
I
guy.
don't know. I also I understand a lot for the Texans. Getting your number one defensive guy, he's going to be their franchise defender for years.
But
They're
in my
J.J.
opinion,
Watt.
if I'm giving up my first round pick in the next season,
And
I know
two other first-round
I
picks.
know I'm not going to be good, the player has to be like worth
Yeah.
it.
Like
Worth it
Hall
for
of
sure.
Fame potential. Yeah, I get that for sure. But it's still like I don't mind it. What I do mind is them trading away so many just bona fide roster pieces in that move. They trade away 2 first rounders that are going to be roster pieces. They trade away late rounders that are going to be roster pieces. But
I do like
they
Stroud.
have less to.
I like him
But
as that guy.
Stroud,
there.
yeah, he looks like an NFL player, and that's a lot more than you could say for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that division, we haven't seen anything from the
Jags are
Tennessee
leading at
quarterbacks.
1-1.
We haven't seen
Tennessee
anything
tied
from the
1-1.
Tennessee quarterbacks, but T-Law, Anthony Richardson, and C.J. Stroud. Like, that's going to be a really fun,
It will
good QB division.
And then if Levis can step up, then he would. That's a fine addition to that.
And then the Denver Broncos have started 0-2. I wrote Russ looks way better
He
than
does.
last
He
year.
does
He
look
looks
way
very
better.
good. However, losing 2 winnable games to start the season is very crushing.
And that's where I wrote, Sean Payton didn't fix shit. He might have fixed Russell Wilson, but this team is the exact same team. Winnable games are being lost.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating. Because it's a team I want to see win.
It's like
It's a team I
they've
wanted
lost
to see
9
Sean
straight
Payton
games.
come in.
Since they've lost 9 straight games where they've been winning at halftime.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to watch this team play and thinking that things are going to change.
They won't be a playoff team. Sorry, Broncos fans. But if you're a playoff team, you're not losing to the Raiders and the Commanders to start your season.
No, you can't. You can't. Especially if the Commanders
By
are
1
up
point or by
21
2
to 3.
points.
Like you're up 21 to 3 on the Commanders and you lose. Like you can't have that happen if you're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And another team that is probably not going to make the playoffs, but like, why are they also bad as the Chargers in that same division? Herbert is so good, and that team is so bad.
Yeah.
I don't get it. That Dolphins matchup, I get. Like, they just got outbeat. They just got beat. But that second week, they were just bad.
Yeah. One thing I will say about the Broncos before the Chargers is just, I think the Broncos, the way their team is built and the way that their team can play, they'll be one of those teams that'll be like 7-10, but one of those 7 wins will be against like the Chiefs or you know what I mean?
Or the 49ers. Like,
exactly.
I don't know if they play this year.
They'll get a big win just because their team can be one of the best teams if they play to that potential every week, but they won't play to that potential every week.
And then unless Sean Payton pulls something out of his ass, they're not going to ever reach that point.
Yeah, but I agree with you on the Chargers. What I wrote down was they're one of the scariest defenses on paper, but they are trash in person.
Bosa,
J.C. Jackson.
It doesn't make sense. They just get torn up.
It doesn't make sense. But another thing that doesn't make sense is their scheming. Apparently, like, I didn't watch the Dolphins Chargers game that much, but like apparently they had Khalil Mack covering Tyreek Hill like in a drop back coverage.
I did see that.
That shouldn't be happening.
And that's happened like multiple plays and multiple drives where Tyreek Hill keeps getting schemed on left outside linebackers. I don't know if it's the Dolphins or not.
Yeah.
But as an NFL team, you have to prepare for that. Whether you have to prepare for the other team's game plan, and the Dolphins are just the Dolphins especially just abused them.
Yeah. I also wrote poor Herbert. He hasn't turned the ball over this season. He's looked really good. It's just you know that defense. I think as a fantasy owner, it's kind of nice having a quarterback on a team with a bad defense.
Has that be in gun battles?
Yeah, he could set the passing yard record.
He's going to.
But I don't know.
It's something like in his last 6 starts going into last season, he's one of the statistically best quarterbacks with no interceptions, high amounts of tutties, and like a plus 65 completion rate.
Yeah, it's one of those just like there's not much more he can be doing.
No.
It's just the team around him needs to be better. I like the offense.
It's fun to watch. It's really fun to watch, especially when Austin Ekeler's healthy and not facing the Titans.
Yeah, they looked fun against the Dolphins.
Yeah, a lot of what's being talked about is based off that Dolphins game because the Titans game was such a snooze.
But with this 0-2 start and the way their defense is playing, it makes you question, should they have fired Brandon Staley right after that Jacksonville game?
Yes.
And they should have.
There's no question.
So, we'll see. I think the Chargers can be an okay team. Their offense is good enough to win games.
They're also a 7-10 team. With
7-10 to 9 and
7-10 in the exact opposite way. The Broncos are going to be 7-10.
They're going to lose games that they're going to
lose games that they're meant to win. Exactly.
And then the last team that we haven't talked about,
our last 0-2 team,
is the Minnesota Vikings.
Frauds from last year. The biggest frauds we know to man. And who could have seen this coming?
Yeah.
You
frauds. Playoffs.
No, I did not. This season?
Yeah.
No.
They were your 7th seed.
No way.
Yeah.
They're frauds. I
have losing.
No, I thought I had the Seattle Seahawks coming 7. Or no, I had Seahawks actually 5th. God damn.
I think you had Seahawks, Falcons, Vikings for your wild
those
card.
are fine. I have them. I should have picked even the Commanders over them.
I mean, I don't know.
They're frauds. I hate their defense. It's just they get torn up just as bad as the Chargers D gets torn up, and their offense isn't good enough to push it. Herbert Cousins is no Herbert. He can't single-handedly do shit.
Yeah.
In comparison.
Mm-hmm. But he did have a really good game on Thursday Night Football. A lot of that was inflated by him needing to throw the ball. It's that was the least close 6-point game maybe ever. They lost by 6 points, but I never once was Minnesota can win this game.
No, they're showing their true colors from last year, where they're now starting to lose these close games, and they're gonna get blown out a few times.
Exactly. I wrote losing the 1-score games this time around. Last year they were 11-0,
11-2 at the end of season for one-score games. It was incredible how just lucky they were.
No, I think the first 1-score game they lost was the playoffs actually.
Wow.
Against the Giants.
Yeah.
So they were statistically so good in those games, and then now it's you're bound to lose some of those.
They're not going to have as many bullshit bounces go their way, especially in that Bills game last year they won.
I could, in a weird way, see them maybe making somewhat of a push for the division.
I think it's between the Packers.
They're only 1 game back.
I think it's between the Packers and Lions at this point. I think if those teams were to go head-to-head, I'd pick the Packers over them. I'd pick the Lions over them.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think Minnesota lose it. Dalvin Cook was not amazing last year, but Madison looks
Madsen
to start the year.
So just not.
Got to
good.
put in Ty Chandler.
Get Ty
He's
Chandler
more
going.
explosive.
He's younger. He's the future.
Jefferson's crazy. The
Jefferson's
Bears
so
the Bears
good.
stat is insane. The
Yeah,
fact
that he would be the highest
leading
receiver
all time.
Yeah,
And that's one of the longest existing teams in the NFL.
It's embarrassing for the Bears, and we're the Bears hate club.
Yeah.
So getting into some teams that we will watch and won't watch, I just kind of wrote this down as teams that I said I will watch before the season started was the Falcons and the Lions and the Seahawks, and I've watched a fair amount of each. The Seahawks I've watched the least. I didn't really watch their Week 2 game as much. I'm really hung up on that Week 1 game still. And it's just, I'm not a fan. I thought going into it, I would be a fan of watching their offense this year. But last year, I wasn't really a fan of the offense, and I thought they would elevate, and they just haven't. It's more of the same. They just, exactly. JSN and Charbonnet are not elevating this offense, and it's not fun to watch. I thought it was going to be fun to watch. And that defense is just I don't want to watch. Like sometimes you tune in just to see how good they could hold teams. Exactly like
That's how you're watching games.
And then for the Lions I've watched a good amount so far. It's just more so I've been watching their offense and Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's just the most exciting player in the league to just watch on a week-to-week basis.
He's very fun.
He's electric. He tears up defenses, and his yards after catch stuff goes crazy sometimes. Yeah. And it's really fun, and it's more fun to watch just because they're not so great, where it's you get a lot of wacky stuff happen. But the number one team I've watched is the Falcons. I've been so in tune with them. I've been watching their drives and their games, and I watched Week 1 and Week 2, and my God, they're really skyrocketing up the rankings for
the
favorite teams.
A lot, man.
I love them so much, and
this season especially.
Especially
with Bijan.
Bijan as a rookie, he's tearing up. Some of the aerial cams of his jukes are just incredible. And their offense, they built this roster really good. This is what I wanted from the Panthers roster, where they have Bijan, who's just leading the charge, but they also have Algier behind him, who can vulture some touchdowns, but have big weeks anyways. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they have Drake London, who donated Week 1, and then put up a 15 fantasy point performance in Week 2, and he actually looked like that guy in Week 2. And, of course, behind him, Mac Hollins, they took him from the Raiders, I'm pretty sure, and he's just been excelling there, and he was an end zone threat really big in that Week 1 matchup. Yeah. And then the defense, as we talked about coming into this season, a big thing for me and one of the biggest roster moves was just their defense. Bringing in Jesse Bates III is perfect. Mm-hmm. Literally perfect. As Flowers and now AJ Terrell on the corners are able just to do their thing and just completely shut down their man, and then Bates covers anything else on the field, and then their D-line is so good. Calais Campbell, Onyemata, and then, of course, Grady Jarrett taking over. It's
6 foot. He's 6 foot, 300 pounds.
And he just bullies. Mm-hmm. It's so much fun to watch. If you're not watching Falcons games yet, get on that.
Which is weird because for the last 4 seasons, they've probably been the most one of the most unwatchable teams.
And for some reason this season, it's all clicking.
And now Koo is hitting game-winning field goals.
And Younghoe Koo is just, he's that guy again.
Shout out Brian McLeod.
Brian McLeod
out there living it up in Atlanta.
Lucky duck, man, enjoying some good football for now.
Yeah.
And then some teams I said I wouldn't watch were the Cowboys. And that one's more now they're good. I will
watch them.
I'm still not gonna watch them because they are now
unless you
they
love
are
defense.
getting pushed down our throats now, and it's gonna be impossible to avoid them.
That's true.
The Rams, I'm genuinely shocked. I'm watching them more than I thought I was gonna be watching them, and that run game is deadly.
Yeah.
Deadly.
Yeah.
Still not gonna watch many games, but they're deadly.
Puka's incredible.
When
most
Kupp
receptions
is back,
by a rookie through his first 2 games.
When Kupp is back, I may watch full games, but until then, still on my will not watch list.
Yeah.
And the last one, the one that I couldn't have been more wrong about, was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
They have moved from my will not watch list to I might tune into every single game.
It's fun.
It's so fun. They might be one of the most fun rosters in the league this season.
Yeah. I'll try to quickly run through mine. Baltimore, I wrote will watch. They've proven to me why I will watch them. I think they're maybe outside of the Bills, the team that I'm going to try to watch as much
They're so
as
much
possible.
Fun too.
The Chargers, they're going to produce some fun games. So
That's
in that
Week
sense,
1 was amazing. That was a barn burner of a game.
Yeah, but their defense, I think they're going to produce fun games, but maybe not wins. And then Cleveland, obviously it's tough. They lost Chubb, but still the defense is exactly what I wanted it to be. Myles Garrett's elite. But yeah, I don't know. I just think without Chubb now, they're going to be one of those offenses where it's just like you're watching them on the field and it's like.
And Deshaun Watson's just not cooking. Yeah.
And then my teams I won't watch.
You had any like
I had the
real
Raiders.
surprises?
I had the Raiders, who I mean, this past weekend is probably the last Raiders game I'm going to watch all year.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that's because they played the Bills. I had the Patriots.
Yeah, which I don't blame you either. Which highlights maybe that again, Bourne. He's been fun. He's the only thing I want to watch.
Yeah, and then the Cardinals, who
You know
are
what?
more fun than
Low-key,
expected.
Way more fun than expected.
Yeah.
Deserve a bit of a watch.
Somewhat.
Just a bit.
Yeah, exactly. But Cardinals are one of those like if it's the only game I can get on cable, sure. But like if
Yeah.
there's another game, I'll be watching.
Like those other teams, I might choose to go on my phone instead.
I think now if I had to like replace the Cardinals, I'd put Bears. Like I don't.
I'm
not
not
gonna
watching
tune
a
into the
single
Bears.
Bears game.
Which is weird because not either of us, but I'm sure there were a lot of people going into the season who that was one of their teams to watch. The Bears, they got DJ Moore. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Let's
think
be
about this rationally.
Let's
guys.
be real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but
that's
yeah,
our
those are our
thoughts,
early reactions to the NFL season.
Week 2, it's a really, really fun season so far, at least. It's been easy to follow, a lot easier to follow than other years have been, it feels like. Less bullshit going on.
Yeah, and week 3 starts tomorrow. We're recording this on a Wednesday, but doesn't really start until Sunday because we know the 49ers are going to kill the New York Giants.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe I'm
No.
jinxing it.
You're not.
But,
I can confirm that you're not.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything we could say at this point.
Yeah. So go Bills.
Go Panthers.
Yeah, exactly. It's like It's like
Wait, I need
they
them
have
to
to
win.
win
They
games.
have to win games because they have their
if
pick.
they didn't have their first overall pick, or if they had their first
Oh,
round
I'd
pick,
be
it'd be
cheering
like
for the tank.
it'd be like okay,
Marvin Harrison Jr. would
baby.
be perfect for
Yeah.
next year, but no, we don't have our pick. We have to win games.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a fun week or a fun season through 2 weeks. With more weeks, there's going to be more to talk about. Hopefully, less injuries to talk about.
Less severe ones, at least.
Less severe ones. It's just like
It's tough.
yeah, it is tough. You understand why they only play one game a week.
You want to try to forget about them as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the next time we talk about football, we'll probably have already talked about hockey. So we'll see you, in that episode. But yeah,
Whenever
thanks for
that is.
watching, and we'll see you next time.